Hi, it's Dwyer. It's April 5th, 2025. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now let's go out on a limb here. Of all the fights happening today, for me, the biggest fight is Joyce against Filip Hrgovic. Understand, I still consider Hrgovic, who got beaten by Daniel Dubois, to be the heir apparent. Right? This is a big fight. This is an existentialist fight. In other words, if Hrgovic is to be taken seriously, he has to show you a talent gap today against Joyce, right? Understand, Joyce is not defensively blessed. He's relying on his chin for defense. Hrgovic, much faster-handed, much better legs. Hrgovic needs to be able to dodge Joyce's jab, which is one of the best in the heavyweight division. He needs to use his footwork and timing to not just dodge the jab, but then to come in and flurry. Right? If he can do that, there's a chance that he does close to the unthinkable, something Zhilei Zhang already did against Joyce. There's a chance that he could stop Joyce. Here's the problem. Here's the challenge. This is why this is a great fight. Joyce has great stamina. Excellent stamina. Against Joe Parker, Joyce kept bringing it round after round. I think Parker thought Joe was going to slow down. That's not the Juggernaut's game. Right? Joyce has stamina. The question is whether Filip Hrgovic, who took this fight on short notice, is in enough shape to pull away in the later rounds. If he doesn't get the stoppage, is he going to fade like he did in the Dubois fight? Or is he going to have that last burst, which got him the win, if you believe he won, in the Zhilei Zhang fight? Folks, this fight's also my favorite because of all the fighters fighting today. I think Filip Hrgovic has the highest upside. It's show up or stay home time for him. Right? This is a great opportunity for him. Quite frankly, I thought he should have beaten Daniel Dubois. Here he has a slower-handed opponent who also needs a win or at least a great showing to continue his career on an elite level. Buckle up, pay close attention to what happens in that Joyce-Filip Hrgovic fight. We'll be talking about it after the fight takes place. Just understand that I'm extremely bullish on Filip Hrgovic. His fight against Dubois is kind of like the Foreman fight against Ali. Right? I consider Foreman to be a better fighter than Ali in the 70s. You know, I privately feel that Foreman against Holmes would have decided the top of the 1970s. Well, let me just say, Hrgovic, like Foreman, throws himself out. Now, there is a difference. Ali actually is defensively blessed. He has his hands up. He's over by the side of the ropes. He's blocking the shots. Somehow, Daniel Dubois in 2024 was able to get hit, use his chin for defense by Hrgovic several times, tiring Hrgovic out. Like Foreman, Hrgovic's success, right, in, landing shots. With Foreman, it was his success in getting Ali over by the ropes. With Hrgovic, it was Hrgovic's success in landing right hands that caused Hrgovic to throw himself out. Right? Had Hrgovic, at the end of the second round, taken a step back, thought to himself, I have the hand speed advantage on this man. Let me just say, too, it's not even a hand speed advantage. It's actually a no-tell advantage. In other words, Hrgovic, you can't tell when he's throwing punches. Right? You can tell that from the film because a guy like Dubois has his hands up against AJ. But against Filip Hrgovic, he doesn't. Right? I think that there is some dynamic in the ring where you can tell when AJ is going to throw punches. You cannot tell when Filip Hrgovic throws punches. I believe Hrgovic got caught up in the moment, thought he was being successful, thought he was slowing down Dubois, threw himself out. Had he taken a step back after 2 rounds, then paced himself, right? Gone through that fight thinking, okay, I'm faster than this man. When do I need the hand speed? Let me pick portions of the round where I flash my hands and I land shots. Right? If Hrgovic himself understood the extent of his foot speed advantage, and it's not even foot speed, we'll call it foot coordination advantage over a Dubois, he should have been able to just go back foot for stretches of that, of the rounds and won on the scorecards. Instead, he threw a lot of punches the first 5 rounds and had nothing left. Right? Let's see how he paces himself on short notice against Joyce. Let's also take a quick tour around the heavyweight division. Folks, the division is deep. It's drowning out the rest of boxing. You have 2 fights announced thanks to the WBA. Right? You have Fabio Wardley against Jarrell Miller. Now let me say this. Jarrell Miller to me is 2 front foot. Right? Fabio Wardley is a wild card. He's a 2-handed puncher who is unpredictable. Right? This is the, pitcher who has a funky windup where you can't even figure out the release point. Right? Also, Wardley, let's just say he's interesting because he'll go through, portions of fights where he looks like he's sleepwalking. Then something happens, he gets hit, he gets hit a bit too much, quite frankly. But when Wardley turns on the offense, folks, he's offensively blessed. Now, the thing to understand about Jarrell Miller is that there are going to be some nights where he's inspired. I'm guessing there are many people watching this video who thought he beat Andy Ruiz. Right? That was a great performance. Wardley Miller, that's a 5-star fight, folks. Let me just say, that's something you have to look at because it's also a title elimination match. Let's talk about the title fight. Kubrat Pulev, one of the best jabs in the heavyweight division. Right? And Pulev is a little bit savvier with it than Joyce. Right? But he's fighting a boogeyman. A guy who can look sluggish at times and then look absolutely inspired. This is the guy who, until recently, had the only victory over Martin Bakole. And that's Michael Hunter. Right, folks? Hunter is a bettor's dream. Because this is the guy who, until recently, only had 1 loss. And it was to Alexander Usyk at cruiser. right? This is the fighter who can go off rhythm. The key is that Hunter is actually a switch, right? He can go off rhythm, keep a Martin Bacoli guessing on whether he's front foot or back foot, whether he's going to clinch or throw some short punch. Right? Hunter is great at figuring out an opponent's rhythm and then throwing punches off beat. But the problem with Hunter is there are fights where it looks sloppy. Hunter is actually gifted inside. But there are fights where it just gets to be a wrestling match. In my favorites folder right now, I have video from an unreported fight. It's Hunter against Artem Selenkov. And understand, Artem beat him. Right? This was a fight in Uzbekistan. Right? And just understand, it's a wrestling match. Right? The two guys are inside. They're holding each other. You know, one guy gets a hand free. He hits the other one. It's sloppy. But the key is that Hunter did not distinguish himself. Right? That's a loss where you say, okay, the loss is believable. Then you have his fight against Jerry Forrest. This is a guy who got destroyed by Jared Anderson. This is a guy who got knocked down 3 times by Zhili Zhang, gets off the canvas, starts to dominate Zhang in the later rounds, and earns a draw with him. Right? Jerry Forrest is also a gambler's paradise because Jerry Forrest is the kind of guy who can get a draw with Zhili Zhang. Folks, he got a draw with Michael Hunter. And if you look at the footage of the fight, Jerry Forrest actually asserts himself later in that fight, just like he asserted himself later in the fight against Zhili Zhang. Right? So the heavyweight division right now has my word, in fact, Val Kilmer's word, R.I.P. You have a lot of huckleberries in the heavyweight division where, you know, you're looking at the record. You see Filip Hrgovic lost to Daniel Dubois. You see Jerry Forrest got blown out by Jared Anderson. You see that, you know, Michael Hunter lost an unreported fight, right? It was sanctioned by the IBC, who doesn't really have a real governing body, according to some folks, so it doesn't count in the official records. And you say to yourself, oh, come on, I'm not going to bet on these guys, right? Folks, believe it or not, that's where you make your money. Michael Hunter should be able to dodge Kubrat Pulev's jab. Then life's going to get interesting. Right? The key with that Hunter-Pulev fight is, where is the fight? Is it going to be in Pulev's backyard as Pulev's title match against Mahmoud Char was? Or is it going to be in some neutral location where there's not going to be a hometown fighter and Hunter might be able to lift the title? Right? If it's in the United States, right, I'm just telling you, Pulev is going to have a hard time holding on to that belt. Right? Let me just say this too. Once you let the Wildcat out the cage, you're going to have problems. Right? If Hunter, who has faced more opponents than you think, you heard me mention Usyk, right? He's faced Alexander Povetkin. He's faced Ustinov. He's faced Bacoli. Right? He's faced punchers and he's survived. You let Hunter, who wants another shot on Alexander Usyk, that's actually a great fight until you get to about round 7. Right? If you let Hunter get a share of the heavyweight title, I'm just telling you, he's going to be the betting side of the play in most of the fights he has. Right? Keep in mind, too, Hunter mid-30s. This is the heavyweight division. Heavyweights age more slowly. Pulev mid-40s. Right? This is the KG vet side of the aisle. Folks, the heavyweight division, to me, is wide open. Especially since Alexander Usyk is in his late 30s. Today should be interesting. It starts today for Filip Hrgovic. Right? That Dubois loss, big setback. He can get himself back in the saddle if he lives up to his capability against Joyce. Right? He needs something dramatic. If I'm on Team Hrgovic, I'm telling him, look, don't rely on the judges. Don't rely on the later rounds. The consensus is that Joyce looked to be in better shape than Filip Hrgovic at the weigh-in. Let's see how that plays out. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let's enjoy the fights. I'll be here tomorrow talking about them afterwards. Just be aware as you watch today's fights that the WBA has ordered Fabio Wardley to fight Jarrell Miller. Folks, that's a great fight. It's also ordered Kubrat Pulev to fight Michael Hunter. That's a great fight too. Right? We're going through a period of consolidation in the heavyweight division. As I sit here today, I can't tell you how it turns out. But I can tell you that two of the better talents in the heavyweight division, in my eyes, are Filip Hrgovic and Michael Hunter. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.